At this point, I'm going to add the clouds that I had in the original image. For those of you who haven't seen that image or haven't seen that thread, if you go to the ArtRage forums, you can go ahead and find that. I believe it was in the tips and tricks section. I'll try to put the link for that in the video description as well. So to continue, I'm going to add another layer. All right, that's going to give me a dry layer to work over top of what I've already done. And I'm going to select white as my color. And I'm going to reset my tool to default again. And I'm going to put my roughness down a little bit here. And I'm going to start somewhat high on the canvas. I'm going to turn my thinner down a little bit more. Alright, and I'm just going to go through here and add a little bit of clouds. Okay, so this is the crest of the cloud, I guess you would call it. And if I increase that thinner to 100%, I'm going to basically be using water. I'm going to increase the roughness a little bit again. And I'm just going to drag, lightly tap, and then increase my pressure and drag away. And that's going to drag that white color out and give me a full cloud effect coming down. And if I increase the color bleed, or rather decrease it, so drag it to the left, that'll give me, again, different textures in there in terms of how it's dragged. And if I ever need more white in some areas, I can just tap that in by decreasing the thinner and going back over those. So you can see how it's starting to build that up again. And I'm tapping the canvas here. I'm not dragging. I'm tapping over it. And now I'm going to drag again a little bit just to get some more texture involved. Increase my thinner. Sorry, increase my thinner. And drag that out. Alright, so there's the start of a cloud. And another trick that I like to bring up here is using the eraser. Okay, if you're using the eraser and put the low pressure on that and increase the softness a little bit, you can actually go over the painting that you've done without picking up any of the color. But what it's actually doing, though, is drying that paint as well. So if I were to go back to the watercolor tool at this point with a high thinner on there and go back over where I just dried it, it's like up here is kind of wet and you can see it bleeds in, but over here it's still dry. And if I touch that, it kind of erases that away. And that'll give you different effects there too. And it's sort of a little bit difficult to see right here only because behind this cloud is white. It's like up here, if I did this, okay, so I just erased that and went back into that. You see how harsh that is? That's happening down here. You just can't see it so much because it's on a lighter surface. I'm going to undo that. So, but this also works in reverse. So instead of just taking the paint away, if I didn't want to create another layer to work over, I could dry a certain area, increase or decrease the thinner so that I'm getting more of the white rather than clear paint, and go over there. And you can see how it's a harsh line right there. But as I go further down, it'll bleed out. So like right there, it just bled into what's already wet paint, so it thinned itself out. So that's another technique for getting different textures, because if you go through with the eraser and just dry up just small areas within there, you'll get breaks within the bleeds you make, and that'll give you extra texturing. And I'm not really going to do too much more with the clouds here. Just add a few more things here. A couple more tufts of it. Okay, that'll be good enough, I think. So like right here, I'm going to make another harsh edge that I ended up erasing when I was connecting that. And then I'll bleed that out into the cloud formation again. Okay. So there's our sky. I'm going to deviate from the picture that I made originally. I'm going to add a moon in here. And to do that, I'm going to use the stencils. So here's the stencils pod here. It opens the stencil panel. And under stencils, you'll find one called circle. If you give that a click, it'll open up this stencil. I'm going to put that right up here in the corner. And now I'm going to use the selection tool set to use the rectangle size, shape rather. And I'm going to select around that stencil. Now I'm doing that because, here, let me undo the selection I made. If I were to paint, and this is on a new layer by the way, if I were to paint over this, and my brush goes over the stencil, you can see that it goes outside the lines. Okay, it doesn't stay within the stencil itself. It would if I were using the ruler mode. Okay, this is ruler mode. But within ruler mode, it follows the edge. But you can see it still ends up bleeding. And to counter that, I like to make a selection around the stencil itself, just to keep it within the bounds of that. And I could have just used the ellipse tool to make that, but I might actually be using this later, and you can't save your selections. So by having the stencil there, I can, come back to it later by reshowing it. Okay, so I'm going to use, again, the watercolor tool, and I'm just going to fill in this area. You can see the selection's keeping me from going outside the bounds of that stencil, while the stencil itself is keeping the shape. And you see how it's not filling that in? I'm wondering if I go to my edit layer texture. Yeah, you see it's not using the texture of the canvas. I'm going to reset that. For some reason that does that sometimes, so just be sure, if something seems like it's not working right, make sure that that texture setting is set to use the canvas again, and it should fix it. Alright, I'm going to increase my thinner and the roughness, and I'm just going to tap in here. I'm going to decrease that a little bit. Oh, that's better. And that's going to give us some texture to our moon. Give us some craters in there. Alright, I'm happy with that. Alright. I'm going to duplicate that. Select. Oh, you know what? I'm using my hotkeys. I'm sorry. Alright, I just undid that. I'm going to duplicate this layer, this time by using the layer menu and selecting duplicate layer. Alright, so that makes a duplicate of the layer of the moon. I'm going to select the first one I made. I'm going to go to Edit, Blur Layer. And I'm going to drag that dial over to the right. And you can see it's blurring. I can also move the preview over so you can see that happening. That's going to give me a glow for that moon. I'm going to reselect the top moon, and by going to, let's see, I have this where it's a shortcut key, so hopefully I'm in the right menu. Yeah, there it is. Select Layer Contents. It's under the Edit menu. That'll select the moon color that's on that layer. And by reselecting the blurred layer again and hitting delete, I can clear out some of the color behind the moon to make that stand out a little bit more. Deselect my selection there. And again, I think if you go to edit, the deselect all, yeah, there it is, deselect all options right there. I have that as a hotkey as well. All right, so that gives me my glowing moon. And now I'm going to add some stars. So I'm going to select my top layer up top here and click add new layer to make a new layer. Now, you can go ahead and probably get away with using any tool you want for this. Like you could just select the pen tool and just kind of click around and make dots manually. Or if you're me, you like to use the sticker spray tool for things like this. I'm going to open up the presets here. And let's see, I don't know if there's one that's default in ArtRage for this. These are my brushes. That won't be good for you. Let's see, art brushes. No, this might be too. Yeah, that's way too many. I wonder, could we get away with glitter? Low pressure. Yeah, that's a little much too. Well, I'm going to use my sticker spray, and unfortunately I don't have that set up for you guys. So, I mean, you know what? Okay, yeah, if I use this freckle one, I do have that freckle one set up on the ArtRage forums somewhere, so I might be able to put that link in the description as well. If not, you might just have to do it the hard way by tapping in random dots with one of the other tools. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and use that that sticker spray preset for yourselves. I'm just going to decrease the scale in the variations panel. And to get to that variations panel, on the settings panel, you see it says spray variation. You just click on that and that'll open that. And I adjusted the scale down to 3%. I think, yeah, that's a little small actually. Let's open that again. And that's a little bigger than I want. Trial and error. Let's go for 5. Yeah, that's better. Change my spray rate a bit. Okay, and you know what? I'm also going to change the alpha to full. That's good. I like that. Okay, so I just added some stars in. And that's really, I think, it. Okay, so just so you can see what it looks like without those overlaid textures that we added immediately at the start, that's what you would have gotten without those overlays. So not too bad, but still a little stale in terms of how it looks. Like you would have had to do a lot more blurring, I think, with the texture you got. Probably using the palette knife you could do that. But with those in there, it just kind of distracts you from how sharp those edges are. It kind of helps the picture move better, in my opinion. And so that's that. Hopefully this helped. If you have any questions, feel free to ask either in the comment section of the video here or over at the ArtRage forums. I go by someone saying there as well. Have fun.